Hello, kid. It's Grandpa Wes again, and tonight I want to tell you a story that it's one of the treasured stories of my life. I've thought about it again and again, and it's very obscure. I almost promise you've never heard this story. You see, I heard it first when I was a teenager in Saudi Arabia. My folks had moved there, and they had a home right on the Red Sea, just near Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And like many of the homes there, they had a rooftop patio. The house was flat up top, and there were stairs that could go up to the roof, a little wall around the top of the roof so us kids wouldn't fall off. And people would sit out on these roofs at night when it was a little cooler, and they would have dinner there sometimes, but certainly that was the place where they would talk. The seldom rains, so it's usually clear nights, bright stars, and you can even talk to the neighbors across the way. Well, that night, my newly found friend and a young Arab boy my age was up on the roof with me, and we were talking about things, and I was telling him he spoke great English, but I spoke terrible Arabic. I told him how hard a time I was having learning the language. And he laughed and said, even if you understood our words, you probably wouldn't understand what we're talking about. And I asked him what he meant, and he said that their language is so full of idioms and stories. They're a verbal tradition for centuries. And there's so many stories that they know in common that many times just the reference to those stories kind of fills the other person in on things. And he gave me an example. He told me the story of Hanein's Shoes. And it seems that this is hundreds of years ago, there was a nomadic trader that had a caravan of camels. He had a number of wives. He had many, many children and servants. And he was a shrewd man. He was known as the sharpest trader that there was in Arabia. He would go with his caravans from place to place, and he would buy the specialties of one area, go elsewhere and sell it for a great price, and then get the specialties of that area and go elsewhere and do the same. So his family became very proud of him. One time they camped a couple miles outside of a town that he was going to go do some trading in. And early in the morning, the trader loaded up his camels with all their goods, said goodbye to his family and his servants, and he and his camels headed to town for a day of trading. Well, he had a lot of success during that day, and in the afternoon, he walked by a shop, and he was astonished to see this is the shop of the shoemaker Hanein. And Hanein's shoes were known throughout Arabia as the finest a person could wear. And so to be seen in a pair of Hanein shoes was really quite the prestigious thing. And so he says, I got to have a pair of those. A person of my stature and capabilities, I got to have that. He goes in there and begins haggling with Hanein. And really, there's a lowball price on him and kind of offended Hanein, who knew the value of what he had. And so the two kind of got in an argument. And finally, the trader said, I wouldn't have a pair of your shoes if you gave them to me. And so he stormed out, and Hanein just kind of steamed himself, was thinking, I've never been somebody trying to get something for almost free. And he had an idea. And he took a pair of his shoes, and he closed up shop. And he went out to the road that leads between the town and that oasis where that trader had parked his family. And he went about a mile along the road, and he laid one of his shoes in the middle of the road. He went another mile, and he laid a second shoe in the middle of the road. And then he hid himself, and he waited for the trader to start heading home. And sure enough, end of day, the trader's going along the road there, and a mile along his path, he comes along one Hanein shoe, and he picks it up, and he's excited, brand new shoe, and he looks around. There's got to be another one here somewhere, and he cannot find the other shoe. Well, what good is one Hanein shoe? He sets it on the side of the road, and on he goes. Well, a mile later, lo and behold, the second shoe, the mate to the other one. He picks it up, and he's so excited. He's going to have a pair of Hanein shoes, and it's going to cost him nothing. And so he leaves his camels and stuff there, and he runs back another mile back down the road, gets the second shoe, puts them on. Oh, he's excited. Goes back to where his camels once stood. And as you might have guessed, they were gone. Hanein had taken them in exchange for his shoes. And so that night, as the family waited for their father and patriarch and husband to come home, they look down the road and they see a solitary figure. No camels, no packs of goods, just him walking toward camp. And he walks silently in there and they're, "Father, husband, what is happening?" And he walks up to the fire and he just stares down at the fire, kind of quiet. And one of his kids says, "Father, did you make trades today?" And he nodded his head. "I did." They said, well, what did you get?" And he kind of puts a slight, respectful smile on his face. It was still a sad smile, even at that. And he raised the hem of his robe up. And he said, "Today, I traded for Hanein shoes." Well, the Arab boy that was telling me the story says to this day, in at least his circle, his tribe, sometimes when somebody says, "Hey, how was your day today?" the answer is simply, "Hanein shoes." And everybody laughs and nothing more needs to be said. You had one of those days where you traded much more than you intended to for what you ended up getting. And I have thought about that story so many times in my life, and it applies to far too many things. But I see it around me, and sometimes I've been guilty of it myself, where there was something desired, and it could be a physical object, a possession. It could be a reputation. It could be elevation, a position. It could be the laughter of others. And sometimes the expense is the hurt to someone else, right? And you find yourself really finding that it was Hanein shoes. You gave up a heck of a lot more than you intended to for what you ended up getting. And I've thought about that as I look particularly like at the Hollywood version of what a happy life, a happy man, a successful woman, what they may be in that celluloid world. You look at it and go, this could only exist and produce peace, happiness, and joy on the screen where it's scripted. It doesn't work that way in life, where the things that they give up are so much more value than what they actually have obtained. And I would dread to get to the other side of life, other side of the veil, and judgment bar of God. And so what'd you do in life? What'd you get out of it? Well, would you believe Hanein shoes? It wouldn't be a very funny joke at that point. So be careful about what it is that you go after. My own father had a quote that he shared with us again and again. And it's by a guy named Sterling W. Sill. And the quote goes like this: "The purpose of this life is not what you get out of it, but what you become by it." And remember that. And some advice from your grandpa to you: always consider what it is that you're trading and giving up for what it is that you're pursuing. And let the pursuit be worth the expense. So anyway, with that, thank you. Good night. I love you.